Hey everybody, what's going on? I thought I'd do a quick recap of how I viewed Euro USD today and what we were looking at and why. And we can talk about the buy bias and the sell bias, why we would have had either. Um, so coming on the charts, I think, yeah, I would have come around this time. First thing we notice is we get a chalk complete. So you get a supply right here that puts in a new low. Then you disrespect this supply by coming up and taking these highs. If we pay attention to this, right off the bat, we can see that we have a candle body close up above this. So there's definitely some intention to go up. The next thing to notice is we tapped into this wick supply. I want you to pay attention to what we did here. We took all this inducement here. So right off the bat, even though we're going to target these highs, if the move up is to continue, this supply has a much lower chance of holding as the inducement is gone. From the higher time frame perspective, what we're looking at is we are unconfirmed bullish on the daily. We have a weak low because we failed to candle body close above this. We just got a wick. And we created sort of equal highs, which could be some sort of target, but we may run this low first. So we do have a weak low that we would like to see run, and we have equal highs that we would like to see run. I'm guessing this low will go first, but I don't know, obviously. What we're looking at on the 4-hour side of things is the last leg, the last drive down. We would like to see 50% of this leg mitigated, which is 50% of our EQ is right here. So that's kind of the target right now. Usually we reach it, not always. So here we had a push down. We mitigated roughly 50%. And it's just a good ballpark figure to have. Now, being that we are, when I came to the charts, we were still bearish. The only thing we had going for us is we tapped into a 4-hour demand with inducements still intact, this wick here. So we expect some sort of a reaction. So we'll definitely see something from it. Is that enough to buy? It's probably enough to start formulating an idea of a buy to somewhere. Are you shooting for the moon right off the bat? Probably not, but at the bare minimum, we could probably target these highs as we are counter trend. So let's just kind of play this forward, and I can show you what I looked at here. So right now, we're looking for a higher time frame POI to get tapped. So we're just going to go ahead and play this. So that's our tap into our 15 POI. And I believe it is right here. We completed our chalk. So now you have a 15 chalk, you have a 1 chalk, and we have hit a 15 POI. And anybody that's been to my backtesting sessions or the Q&As, you guys know this is all we look for, a POI to get tapped and some sort of chalk and a flip. And yeah. So we can talk about this. Oh yeah, by the way, right now, our EQ is here. Meaning that as of right now, for us to buy in discount, we want to buy below this area. So you have some opportunity to scale in here. For myself, I went down to the seconds, and we had a chalk that happened right from this area here. So for myself, I entered on this with a market execution, and I believe I kind of covered somewhere in here. I think a pip and a half or 1.6 or something like that. And right now we're just going to target the highs right there, as we are still counter trend, and I'm not against selling. We do want to see this 4-hour EQ. I was actually kind of hoping to, and I was actually kind of hoping to buy off the POI down below. So we can talk about that here. We'll go back to the 1 minute. Our POI down below is kind of where we had a reaction. That's our reaction point, and something in these wicks. So the POI could probably be refined to these 2 wicks, and something in here caused this reaction point to go. So I was kind of hoping for a buy from here. which was why I was trying to sell back down. But we can kind of carry on talking about that in a sec here. So there is a sort of 15 supply here we hit. I think that's all caught up right now. So there's a 15 supply we hit here, which is this little doji here, doji wick, whatever you want to call it. We don't really expect it to do much. It failed to put in a new low, so right now this high is weak. In theory, this low is somewhat strong as it completed the chalk. Whoops, didn't want to do that. That's okay. So we're gonna carry on playing this a bit. We can even go as far as perfect. So now we're kind of just like viewing the 1 minute. Oh, I did not want to do that. Let's try that again. It's kind of hard when you start doing bar replay 2 screens at a time. Depending how you trade, you could say there's a scaling opportunity here, as you had a supply to demand flip. Something in here caused one too when this supply failed. This would have been a totally valid trade too. The only thing I have against this is, yes, you are in discount, but at this point, I just wasn't sure how far this was going to go. I thought this high was going to go, and the only other thing I thought for sure is this wick should fail, as there's no inducement. I just wasn't sure if this was the drive to do it, if it was coming back down. But ultimately, the target is the 4-hour EQ. Oh man, I think that's actually caught up anyway. Alright, so we did something like that. And somewhere in here I tried selling. I think we kind of stayed out of this mess altogether. When I see this, I don't really touch it. We're building. And right here, I believe. So yeah, right here. So now we're in a supply. And this is a sort of a demand here. So we're kind of just looking at this, as this is the demand that gave us the last high, I believe. And right here it gets disrespected. So we kind of have this, we have this reaction point. There was really no interaction when we came through it, so we're automatically looking at the extreme. Right now we're looking at a chalk. We're still bearish, so I have no problem executing a sell. So we'll go, let's see, chalk top, and we'll go chalk bottom. So we had this bottom here, and then basically, what the fuck is it? Here we go. And basically we completed our chalk, something like this. We're going to go for the extreme. As the interaction is kind of poor, and I took a loss on that, so that's totally fine. I think I had something like this. I don't really cover too much. It's like a 1.6 pip or something. Anyway, I was planning on this to come down here, and I was planning on a buy down here. That didn't play out, so that was the second trade, which is totally fine. And we'll kind of play the 15 a little more. And now what we have here, if we pay attention, this supply we don't really expect to hold because it's been mitigated. There's no inducement. Now we have this sort of supply which didn't really do much. We don't expect it to hold. But what I do want you to notice about this supply here is if we pull this and we just look at these wicks here. I'm going to zoom in a bit so everybody can see this. I'm going to move this to the side, and obviously we'll adjust our fib and EQ here in a sec as the leg goes up. But if you look at the top of these wicks, so we got a wick, we got a wick, we got a wick, no candle body close. This gray candle here that happens, we get a candle body close. So now we're basically saying we have closed outside of this supply. This isn't going to hold for shit. This is telling us that we should see prices go higher. As of right now, we haven't taken this high yet, and it is this high or even this high, whichever one's higher. I guess this is the high. We want to see a body close above that to be unconfirmed bullish, as we're still bearish at this point. But the fact that we got this body close outside of this supply here, we can start building a narrative of maybe we should look for another buy. And so here we also, I'm going to delete this. So this is kind of where the next idea came from. So demand's in control this whole way up, and basically that's demand and control. When this shock happens, demand loses control, or supply, or yeah, demand loses control and supply takes control. Right here we have a last point of supply that I sold of, and it got completely disrespected. I'll actually delete this trade now. It got completely disrespected here, and what that's telling us is demand took control again. Now if we look at this little area, where did the move actually initiate from? You could say the move initiated from this OB, which is totally fine. You probably would have got tagged in the trade. But for any of you that have joined my Q&A or backtesting session, and any of you that are in Phantom, we always know there's shit in wicks. So we're going to pull this wick. So this is our supply to demand flip here. The interaction between buyers and sellers didn't happen as we went right through. This here is a sort of inducement. So where are we here? 1444 and 1430. So we're just going to play the 1 minute for now, and then we'll catch up the 15 in a bit. And what we can look at here is we are still making higher prices. And what drove these higher prices? Well, something here. If you're smart, you'll probably cover this low. I don't, but that's totally fine. And when I say this wick, I mean the unmitigated part of the wick. Since we never mitigated 50% of it here, we just kind of tapped into it. It's probably also like this whole area is probably like 2 or 3 minute OB or something. But the more important thing to remember is this whole mess in here is actually a demand zone. We're not going to pull an ugly demand here. I think there was a clean candle on something. Yeah, it was a 12 minute. So the 12 minute was fairly clean. And maybe there's something else here. We'll even pull the 14. So you did tap back into it here. We'll just catch this up. So right here, we still haven't got our body close above this to create new structure. However, we are reaching to create new structure. Now, if we just look at the area to the left, you would have had a sort of a supply zone here. And I can explain that pretty quick. If you look what's underneath this supply zone, there is no inducement. This wick took everything, so this is not going to hold. At least that's the theory. Your next sort of supply zone is this. I think it's like a 10-minute supply, and you have sort of inducement here, which is cool, but we could probably say more than likely that'll get mitigated. And if we want to really look at the higher time frame narrative, what is likely to happen when we hit a 4-hour demand? Well, the likely thing to happen is to mitigate a 4-hour supply, which would be this wick. So that's kind of our 4-hour supply. And you can basically buy up to that safely. Well, I shouldn't say safely, but in theory. So that's where the theory came from. So basically here, what I did here was, this is actually not even a market execution. I actually used the limit. And I think we did something like this. I actually covered some of the lows, and I think I front ran it a bit. So we did something like that. And for the target, we're just, I believe it was this supply. It wasn't like a super long trade. Might have even covered a bit lower, but it was something like that. And the idea is basically based off now. If we look at the left, we actually did body close above this, and we printed new structure. So you get the body right here that closed above that. Delete that. So now you are bullish once this candle printed. So now we're looking for a buy. Your initial tap into your 15, which is this right here. Disrespect the supply. Demand takes control. This is your flip zone. And, oh, whoops. And if we just carry on now, and yeah, yes, you got a V-shaped reaction here. For those of you that follow me, you know I like trading that. Why didn't we short that? Well, we are bullish. So for us to start shorting, we want to see a 15 go. So we want to see this low go now since we became bullish. So at this point, we're not interested in selling. And there is your top. Initially, what we can look at here is a strong reaction on this wick, and then look at the next momentum candle. I feel pretty good about staying in that. And that's essentially how I viewed today. So if we just kind of build a narrative and look at what should stay intact and what shouldn't and why, we can usually create that idea. That idea needs to come from 4 hour and 15 minutes. As anything lower than that is less probable. Yes, I know a bunch of you guys trade 1 hour and 5 minutes. That's totally fine. I'm not knocking you. I just don't trade like that. This is what works for me, so this is what I teach. And yeah, we'll just kind of cut this short here. I hope this makes sense to everybody, and we can go. I'll try to do another recap maybe later this week here. Have a good day, everyone, and if you haven't subscribed, definitely subscribe. There'll be more videos dropped.